The largest war memorial to the Soviet World War II soldier lies not in the Russian heartland, but in the center of Europe, in Treptower Park, southeast of Berlin. The 200,000 square meter memorial is a complex and layered series of monuments. First, a kneeling woman, Motherland, is positioned in front of two massive triangular Soviet flags with kneeling Soviet soldiers beneath. Next are 16 sarcophagi with inscriptions and carvings displaying the course of the war, leading to a giant Soviet soldier holding a sword and toddler, standing over a broken swastika. The statue is on top of a hill in the shape of a kurgan, a traditional Slavic burial mound. The memorial includes quotations from Stalin, and the sarcophagi have Russian and German language versions. The memorial also serves as the burial site of around 7,000 Soviet soldiers. The scale and magnitude of the memorial are indicative of the impact of the Second World War. Wars hold a special place in cultural memory and heritage. They involve major loss, death, and trauma. They mobilize entire economies and make and shape the development of entire populations, as outlined by Gergner and Zino in The Heritage of War. War mobilizes identities, mentalities, and emotions. It produces its heroes and victims, and enduring legacies of trauma. The Second World War, the most destructive war in European history, has an enduring effect on the perceptions and memory of post-war generations. The Treptower Memorial is an indication of the unhealed wounds of the Second World War, and the conflicting memories associated with it. Heritage is a battleground and is constantly changing. The Treptower Memorial, constructed to promote an official Soviet narrative, has had its identity rewritten throughout the Cold War by state and non-state actors alike. This video works with the perspective promoted by Jay Winter, that individuals form communal memories of a war alongside state actors who support, ignore, or repress these communal identities. Winter describes a site of memory as a place where communities express a collective shared knowledge of the past. This essay will analyze the Treptower Soviet Memorial and describe the communities who, based on their collective memories, have appropriated or rejected the Treptower Memorial. Firstly, this essay will examine the Soviet/Russian perspective on the monument, which serves as a reminder of an intense memory of loss and sacrifice present in the Russian population. This feeling of loss, caused by the lasting memory of the 1941 German invasion, was appropriated and sponsored by Soviet and Russian states. Next, this essay will analyze the German perspectives, ranging from being a symbol of anti-fascism and liberation to a symbol of the brutality of Russian occupation. This section will analyze Russian memory policy towards the Second World War through the memorial at Treptower and explain why this is a reflection of a broader feeling of loss and grief among the Russian population. In contrast to the more victorious Soviet memorial at Tiergarten, the Treptower monument serves as a symbol of honoring the fallen Soviet soldier. Through the inscriptions on the sarcophagi, we see that the war is framed as a struggle against a fascist invader who disturbed the Soviet Union's peaceful existence. This perspective is captured well by Kotikov, the Soviet city commander, who gave a speech during the opening ceremony on May 8, 1949. This monument will remind the peoples of the world permanently when, by whom, and for what price victory had been gained. The dead that rest in foreign soil did not want the war. They would have preferred to stay with their wives and children. Both Soviet and post-Soviet Russian governments made deliberate efforts in order to promote the memory of the Second World War. Especially during Khrushchev's era, the role of the ordinary Soviet soldier and his sacrifice was promoted as a central theme of the Second World War. While there was a brief attempt to move away from the memory of the war during Yeltsin's rule, this lacked popular support, and Putin reversed this policy. Putin would use the Second World War as a key part of his strategy, Putin's government in 2006 started the OBD Memorial, an online database aimed at documenting all the soldiers who died in World War II. Overall, the memory of the Second World War remains central to government policy in Russia. The memory of the struggle against German fascism is even invoked by Putin to justify his invasion of Ukraine. Soviet and post-Soviet governments capitalized on the memory of the Second World War in everyday Russians. The Treptower Memorial, as a symbol of remembrance of the Soviet casualties of the Second World War, remains a core part of Russian memory policy. The Russian Federation and Germany to this day have a deal that makes sure the war memorials in Berlin are protected by the German state. Furthermore, the monument made steps to accommodate German visitors, and it is symbolic of a Soviet attempt to improve GDR-Soviet relations. By attempting to re-educate German visitors and cement the Soviet Union as a liberating force, Treptower, more than any other Soviet memorial in Berlin, was used to improve German-Soviet relations. The fact that the memory of loss has been a tool in almost all Soviet and Russian administrations gives credence to the idea that it is a communal memory that is still very present within the broader Russian population. We also see the importance the monument holds in its everyday usage. Up to 12,000 people visited the park during the May 9th celebration in 2014. The German reaction to the memorial is considerably more multifaceted than the Russian one. However, we can identify and lay out two communal memories that respond and react to the Treptower Memorial: an anti-fascist memory and an anti-Soviet/anti-Russian memory. The memorial has historically been appropriated by a German communal anti-fascist memory and identity. The monument is regarded by many scholars as having a considerable, universal, and open to interpretation message that can be appreciated by Russians and non-Russians alike. The translations in German and its deliberate omission of demonizing the German population allowed some in the GDR to identify themselves in the memorial's broader narrative of a struggle against fascism. Gegner describes how the monument was recodified by East German officials by disseminating a likely unrelated story about the statue of the soldier holding a child. A story of a Soviet soldier saving a German toddler from crossfire. The memorial's avoidance of demonizing the entire German population was reflected in the Soviet military administration's rhetorical inclusion of the German population amongst the liberated peoples. The GDR officially integrated their liberation from fascism by the Soviets into their myth of origin, and paying yearly homage to the memorial became official state policy. In reaction to an act of vandalism to the memorial, which the GDR characterized as a neo-Nazi attack, 250,000 people protested in response. Overall, we see that the monument was appropriated by an anti-fascist German communal memory and identity. Currently, this communal identity seems to have faded as the memorial does not get much attention from local Germans. However, there are still traces of this communal memory, notably modern-day communist organizations calling the 1989 vandalism of the memorial a neo-Nazi act, and praising the defense of the monument. Furthermore, post-unification, some groups still visited the Motherland statue each year. However, some segments of the German population view the memorial as a symbol of Soviet aggression and as a reminder of a communal memory of Russian occupation. The Soviet occupation of Berlin resulted in the rapes of 125,000 women by some estimates. The scale was, according to Neimark, unprecedented in any European war before or since. In the GDR, the atrocities committed by the Soviets would not be discussed as a part of state policy. A similar silence occurred in West Germany from the 1960s to the 1990s, where, in an attempt to improve relations with the East, discussion of the rape question would be confined to the ultra-right parties. Only post-unification would the rape question be seriously exposed and given mass public attention. To this day, Soviet and post-Soviet Russian governments have hardly acknowledged the mass rape committed by Soviet soldiers. The memorials of Tiergarten and Treptower have both been informally called by some as the tomb of the unknown rapist. Treptower, for many Germans, is a lingering symbol of the atrocities committed during the Soviet occupation. After the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the memorial was vandalized by unknown people with graffiti on the sarcophagi reading "Putin equals Stalin" and "Ukrainian blood on Russian hands." The memorial is for some a symbol of global Russian oppression and occupation. The memorial's original meaning as a commemoration of the victory of the Red Army, which had Ukrainians and Russians fighting together, is largely forgotten. Overall, the Treptower Memorial serves as an interesting case study of the lingering trauma and collective memory associated with the Second World War. As a site of memory, it was appropriated and rejected by many groups. These appropriations and rejections inform us about the communal memories of these groups, from German anti-fascists to the Russian imperialist far right. The memorial's awesome features, such as the sarcophagi and large Soviet soldier, create a powerful public reaction and debate. History is written by the victors, and in this case, a Soviet story is carved into stone on German soil.